And tell you that today is Monday, September 18th, and we are here at the Highlands Ranch Mansion in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, about to do an oral history with the two of you, because you have memories around this place in particular. So, starting with you, Debbie, tell me a little bit about who you are and why this place is important to you.
I am Debbie Cole Hunter, and I'm the youngest of three. My dad, Donsel Cole, and Okima Cole, our mother, worked for Mr. Phipps, and I grew up on Highlands Ranch.
Good.
This is where my life started.
And so who is your cohort to your left?
This is my oldest brother, Rodney Cole.
So tell us about your relationship.
Yeah, we moved here when I was a year old.
Where did you move from?
We lived in Littleton, or Englewood, Colorado, someplace. We moved to what we refer to as the Cheese Ranch when I was a year old. And we lived over there until it had been 1945, and we lived there until 1950.
I understand the Cheese Ranch had a really nice big house.
Yes.
Was that the only house there? I know there were barns and things like that.
There was only one house,
Yeah.
and there were several outbuildings. They had a big barn where they milked their cows.
It was a spring house.
And then there was one time, I don't remember, but I remember hearing about it, they had their own hog slaughtering facility. They had because back in them days they scalded them, and they had and they tore that down while we lived there. But I don't remember much about it, but I know that.
How did you come to live in, that place was available? Your dad was going to be working for Mr. Phipps.
That's right. And he had acquired the ranch as his property a few years before that, and my dad got the job and that house was available.
Good. So you and your family, how many were you at that time?
There was just me. My brother was born just before we moved, like in January of '49, and we moved over to the headquarters part here in '50 sometime, mainly because I was going to start school, and getting in and out of that place over there was kind of a
harder
chore.
than here.
And Umwa then was born here. I was born at the main ranch.
And which building did you live in?
The bunkhouse, the end apartment.
There was an end apartment on that long building. The south end, it was a little apartment house. Like we lived there until
I went to first grade. My picture of me is in front of the little yellow house. I was in first grade, and we moved there right before I went to first grade.
When you're talking about the yellow house, you're talking about one of what we refer now to as the cottages?
Yes, it's the one over here from the house,
just
right
over
straight over here.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that was the little, everybody called it the little yellow house. In fact, the buggy barn, the front part of it, because that was all the chicken coop at one time, our dad was real sick, and my mom fixed the upstairs of that so that we had a place to play, so we weren't in the house driving our dad nuts. Because he had fallen off the hay truck and broke his back, wasn't it? Is that when that was?
well, yeah, I don't know if he broke his back, but he hurt it pretty bad.
Yeah. So, and
Interesting.
Yeah, that building right next to the house, there was like 2 stories. It was, a story and a half, you might say, because the downstairs was where they did the things, and the upstairs was kind of finished. I think somebody at one time might have stayed in there.
it was a cool place. It really was.
But it was nice, so it was fun to play, and
Yes, it was.
we
It
could
was
sneak in and see the buggies. And
We always played in the buggies. We always played in the buggies. Willie, he's my age, his dad worked for Mr. Phipps, and he and I and Rodney and Brian, what we couldn't think of to get into do most of the time. My brothers were kind of mean to me, because I
Well,
was
that
a
always
little
happens.
sister.
Did you play with Susanna Ray?
No.
Did you
I
know
think-
of her, or did you cross paths? I think she was only here through 55.
Yeah, no, so I would have been pretty little, because I was born in 52.
Only
Okay, so
contact
yeah,
we
no,
had with
yeah.
them is they would take turns going to the school bus. The school bus would come to the main gate, which is out on the County Line Road and where Broadway dead ends.
Right.
They would take us out to the school bus. And then, at the time, most of the time when we lived here, there was no other kids except for us three.
Yeah.
My understanding is you might have gone to the Plum Creek School
Yep.
down
Yes.
down near
We're all-
Lakeland.
Yeah, we were all graduates.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I started the first 3 years down at the old Plum Creek School, which is not there no more. It's in the bottom of that dam. It was a 2-room schoolhouse with no indoor.
What Susanna Ray told me about was she said it was a two-holer.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
2 teachers that taught Mrs. Barr taught the upper 4 grades, and Mrs. Jacques taught the lower 4. She was Mrs. Barr's daughter, and they lived just next to the property.
Yeah, they lived right down there on the Plum Creek.
And
Till,
Mr. Barr drove the school bus.
Okay.
until the flood of 65, they lived there.
And
And then
And things
their home
changed.
was washed away in
Yeah.
the flood.
Yeah. Skeet Dennis tells the story of Bud and Marion Morgan had a house down near Plum
Yes, they
Creek,
did.
as he would call it, and that it was washed away too.
Yes.
yeah,
Or severely
It was horrible.
damaged.
so it was damaged and inhabitable afterwards.
He was uninhabitable,
Yeah.
basically.
They brought the big grain trucks, they brought as much as they could out of down there for Marion. And I remember it was all hands on deck that summer. We all had to have some kind of shots because we were dealing with the flood water stuff. And to help Marion and Bud resettle and and that's when they became our neighbors.
Yeah.
And they moved into the house where
They were
Marion
in one
lived
of
to the day
yellow
she died.
houses, too.
Yes, we lived in the east house and she lived in the west house
Right.
over
Yeah,
here.
we moved into that east house.
I was in 3rd grade. That's the only how I can remember where we lived. And that, moved in there when I went into 3rd grade.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and remember when Brian's memorial, when I said, Brian and I were eating Jell-O in the closet? Remember the big closet you guys had in your bedroom, the boys' bedroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Mom caught us.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the little yellow house then.
Little yellow
I've
house.
never been in it.
It was a little. Okay, there was 2 bedrooms in the back. The one on the right was our mom and dad's room. The one on the left was Rodney and Brian's. And then, I don't know, the room that was in the front, it had a window that you could open between their room and my room, but had no closet. And so, but that was my room, because I was the only girl. It was a living room. I think there was a little bit of an eating area in the kitchen, wasn't
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Well, and the dining room the living room was not big, but fair size, and there was enough for a table in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that window was in that house, sometime they had built the 2 rooms on the back of the house.
As an addition. And
Yeah.
left the window like, yeah.
And then later years, after we moved out, they had another fire and it damaged some of the interior. I don't remember how serious the fire was at, but they did away with that window.
Okay, I just remember Mom would send Brian and I to bed. You were older, always older, so you got to stay up. And Brian and I would open the window and talk back and forth. Well, Brian was my cohort, because he was only 3 years older. He was 7, so, you know, he wasn't any fun.
Right.
Brian was fun.
Yeah, you were the pest.
Yeah.
I was the pesty
The
sister.
pesky little sister, yeah.
Yeah, when we lived in that apartment down there, we had a fire in the kitchen, the old chimney, because it had a wood stove. And then I think the chimney, it just damaged that part. And I don't remember, but I've heard stories where my mother picked up this couch. It was fairly new. She picked it up and carried it out the door.
It was horsehair. I don't know if you've ever picked up furniture that's made of horsehair.
No, this was a new couch.
Oh, but
And
Dan McLean, he was a man that worked for for Mr. Phipps at that time, right? Dan McLean.
Yeah.
And his wife and him were good friends with our moms and dads, and his wife said, well, why didn't you help Kima? And he goes, all I could do was get out of her way.
Yeah.
Because you gotta understand, our mom was only 5'2", but she was about as round as she was tall, and she was stout. She kept 3 kids in line, I'll tell you that. And her dad.
When you were growing up here, you had your own kitchen in the little yellow house.
Yes,
The bunkhouse had a kitchen
yes,
too, I understand.
a big kitchen.
Where
with
did
a
you
cook.
where did you have your meals?
We ate at home, at our little yellow house.
Did you ever eat with the other
Yes, when
ranch hands?
Doris Barnyard was one of the first cooks that I remember. I don't know if you remember anybody back then.
No, I don't. That's the only
But
one.
Doris would go on vacation, and our mom would go down and she would cook, and she would feed the ranch hands.
How many was she cooking for?
I don't know.
Half a dozen at the most.
Probably. And then she also, during branding, she would go down there. Now, Doris liked the old-fashioned cook stove. They tried to get her to use the new electric, and she didn't like it. She wanted, and it'd be hotter blazes in that kitchen. But old Doris, she was over there just a cooking away.
Yes. She was a strange woman.
She had canaries. She had canaries. We always had to take care of the canaries when she was gone.
And she'd take once a week or every couple of weeks, she'd take a day off sometime.
Yeah. We ate at the bunkhouse with the ranch hands then and during branding. So we ate Mr. Phipps's food, yes.
There probably was only, like during the winter, there was only 3 or 4.
Yeah, more in the summer.
And sometimes in the summer, there'd be 2 or 3 young guys that come out and mainly work in the hayfield and stuff.
And his buddies, yeah.
Yeah.
He was old enough to be buddies with these guys.
Well, at first, a couple of them wasn't, because I was like 14 and they were
Yeah.
17, 18, so, you know.
Not that big a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then.
I was told, I think by Susanna Ray, when I asked what kind of events did they have out here that she recalled, one event that she talked about was kind of an all-hands Thanksgiving, which wasn't here at the mansion property, but was in the bunkhouse, kitchen, and dining room. Do you recall that?
I don't remember Thanksgiving, but I do remember Christmas.
I remember.
Well, tell me about that.
Mississippi's bought everybody, all the ranch hands, all their families, the kids, everybody got a really nice gift. They threw a big a feast, and we all celebrated down there at the bunkhouse, in the dining room at the bunkhouse.
And this was Elaine Oakes, Phipps's third wife?
Yes.
Yes.
Lady.
That's the only one you would have known.
Yes.
Lady. Yes,
Lady.
lady.
Lady, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I got it.
Yeah. And she was good to our mom.
Yeah.
I mean, she was. I mean, you know, back at that time, there was not permanent press. So all of the napkins, all of the tablecloths, even Mr. Phipps's undershorts and her undercloth, all that had to be pressed. And that's what our mom did. When she wasn't cooking, she was doing laundry for the Phippses. She worked hard. She worked as hard as her dad, didn't she?
Yeah, and they did have it, and it didn't last that many years, I don't know when, but on the 4th of July, they would have
Up at the park.
up past that big windmill, down about maybe 50 yards, 100 yards.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
There was a little grove of trees and somebody had built, they had little bandstands, you know, frame and a wooden floor. And every 4th of July, they'd have a big picnic.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back down, we'd sit on the front steps, and they'd shoot off fireworks out the drive.
I heard that story from Susanna Ray about the fireworks out here.
And they quit that,
Yeah.
I don't remember when, but all of a sudden, and I think it's due with, Phipps had a small cottage, they called it, and I've heard pictures and seen pictures of kind of a nice house out in California someplace.
Yeah,
I forget what town it was in. It was in the LA area.
Because he and Lady would go to California every summer.
And I think because of he had asthma.
Yeah, he didn't come back until whatever, some kind of weed.
The story that Susanna Ray told was when I asked her the question, well, what's your memory of Phipps? And she said, well, you know, he wasn't here much during the summer months because he had bad hay fever.
Yeah.
Well, I said, well, where was he then? And he said, well, he owned a houseboat, which he kept near Catalina Island, 20 miles into the Pacific, west of Los Angeles. So many of the summer months, he wasn't, he just wasn't here.
He was a wonderful man. He truly was. If he saw you out, he'd stop and talk to you. He didn't care if you were the ranch hand's kid. I mean, he always had tales to tell, stories to tell, like the cheese ranch and how it was this. I didn't know this, but he told the story how it was a stagecoach stop, and you know, he was a really nice man, wasn't he?
Yeah, and if you'd see him out during the time of year he was here, the nice weather, he'd be out tinkering around, walking around the place.
He looked like a bum.
And you wouldn't realize he was
He was the owner.
A multi-millionaire.
because he had on shoes that he'd been painting in at some time, and he just looked like one of the ranch hands.
There's the window there in the master bedroom. I used to play on the steps as a child. And one day I was out there singing and dancing like I owned the world. And when I got all done, the window opened and all I heard was, "Bravo, bravo." And it was Mr. Phipps.
That's good.
And that was special. And I started to run away. He goes, "No, don't go. You're fine, Debbie."
And there was times, he was always buying equipment sometimes, and sometimes it wasn't quite as practical as it could have been.
What type of equipment?
Well, there was a bunch of attachments for Ford tractors, and it sat down there in that big barn, and they used a few pieces of it, but I think that was one of his requisitions. But at one time, when International Farm Hall first, I don't know what year the tractor that was, but he bought it brand new. It had a big, back in them days, the buckets and things on them was like a big cage, you know. Well, it had a hay fork on it, and they also could put a little dirt bucket. He'd go out and he was digging up the soap jacks, soap heaps. He'd be out doing that kind of stuff.
I don't know what year that is, the pictures of Daddy and the Caterpillar. Because he made a deal with Caterpillar. There's some pictures there of our dad. And our dad learned to drive the Caterpillar and he worked the land with it.
Yeah.
But Mr. Phipps, that was one of his better
Yeah,
Because like in the winter time, when the snow would come really bad, they would get the great big old hay sled, hook up the caterpillar, and Dad would take it out to the front pasture to feed, and we got to ride along. That's because we got to go out of church. We didn't have to
yeah,
go
I
to church.
think they had a earlier model crawlers. I seen a picture once, and then pictures that they bought brand new was a D2 Caterpillar,
Our dad loved it.
and they Caterpillar come out and took pictures of
Yeah, all
what
the
he was doing
pictures,
with it
yeah.
for their publicity.
The pictures all have the caterpillar stamp on the back, so that it makes them really authentic, nice. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And at that time, Caterpillar was owned by a guy named McCoy.
Yeah, Daddy loved farming. That was his
At one
favorite
time.
thing to do, huh?
Yeah, he could, in later years, he got kidney stones bad. And it seemed like anything else he did irritated that. But he could ride that Caterpillar all day and it didn't bother him.
He'd come in from working out in the fields, and our mom would stop him before he even got to the back porch. She would literally sweep him off, hand him his clothes and say, go to the bunkhouse, to the washroom. You're not coming in my house with that. Because he was covered in dirt. Yeah.
Let's talk about the property. We understand that the ranch went considerably further west in the Phipps Ranch era, particularly up until 1965. And then the flood happened, and then the government got involved in taking the land eventually the next few years by eminent domain
Yeah.
used to build Chatfield. What do you remember of the land west of Santa Fe? Realizing there was schools down there and
Riverside
cottages
was there.
where Bud Morgan and other people lived.
Yeah,
What do you
there was-
remember of the hay meadows in particular?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was, I don't remember how many acres there was, but there was the whole bottom land, there was enough hay meadows down there. And then there was some up on the other side of the county road.
That was their land also?
Yeah, there was land over there and it bordered, there was a hay meadow there because they could get some ditch water from the Highland Canal.
Yeah.
But they had several acres of wheat over in there that went down, like pretty near to the Platte and around.
Yeah, the Platte's right there.
Yeah. Well, you call it the Platte. I still call it the Plum Creek.
Well, Plum Creek, they kind of come together there.
The Plum Creek comes in
Yeah.
south of there.
Yeah.
And there was quite a bit of hay ground there because they'd get 3 or 4 cuttings a year off of it.
Yeah.
And down there, most of that they had 1, 2, 3 wells, and they had electric pumps on them. And they irrigated by using those aluminum pipe, and you put a piece of pipe on, and then a wheel and another piece of pipe, and they're, oh, Christ, I don't remember how long they are. I should, because I rolled them a lot. And you have to go out and you let them sit, and then you roll the thing over to a new spot, They went the length of the field, and they had a main line coming down the middle, and they pumped from the well.
In these hay meadows, did they have windmills at all? Over
Where?
there?
Not down there, they
Not
did.
there?
No. But there were windmills.
There was windmills all over.
all over the ranch. And there was an artesian well when you went out the ranch road out north, north, as you were going towards the front gate, there was an artesian well somewhere out there. And it was one of the last gullies before you got to the main roads.
Well, you'd come in, I don't know, a ways, and you get on a ridge, and if you did that curve, you go down over the gully, it was an artesian well.
Yeah.
And then just be south or northwest there was a little, probably would have been a small ranch or a homestead at one time. There was a silo left and part of a barn and an old house. And there was an artesian well there. And there was another artesian well.
Yeah, there was, but I don't know what's that. And wherever there wasn't a windmill or a well, our dad built the dikes
See,
to
there was,
water the cattle.
there was an artesian well down on the Plum Creek,
Was it?
on the south end, about a mile from where the house was, the field.
That was a beautiful house too. It was an old brick.
Well, whose house was this?
That's where Bud,
Bud and Marion lived.
Okay.
And
That's
there
where
was-
all the chickens were too at that time. Were down there in the bottomland.
My understanding was that Kistler owned Blakeland Poultry Farm
I don't know.
prior to Phipps
I don't know,
buying the
I
property.
never did
So
hear.
that wouldn't be surprising
Yeah, no,
if that was the
the
case.
chickens were down there.
Yeah,
And there was another little house next to, that they had built sometime,
Yeah, what
where
was
Fred Hunter lived.
Fred?
Fred is,
He was just a ranch hand.
okay, no relation to your,
No, no, I'm a hunter by an Okie.
okay, got it.
And he was there, and then when after the flood, I don't know if they salvaged his house or they just built another one a ways south from where that was. It's up on a hill.
If I remember what Skeet said, he said that the Hunter house was just demolished.
And
He
It's
said
so
it
much
had,
was down
he
there.
had, 3 feet of water in it
Yeah.
or something to that point.
because
Yeah,
when that flood hit, I was working for Dr. Beeman
it was a scary day.
At his,
at the clinic.
at his clinic, yeah.
I had started like in, I don't know, spring, the winter. I worked part-time or for a short period.
So, born in 48, flood in 65. That wouldn't have made you terribly old at that
I was
point.
born in 44.
He's 44, our other brother was 49.
Yeah,
I was like 18, I was just out of high school.
Yeah. But he knew Marvin from Marvin and Uni lived next door
They
to
lived
us.
next door to us.
Where Bud and Marion ended up.
at one point, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
That was my first babysitting job, was their little boy, Grant.
What was their boy's name?
Grant,
Grant, that's right.
Laurie.
Laurie.
Laurie's the daughter.
right?
She lives in Pennsylvania.
Oh, does she? Well, I know she was
I've
here.
met her on occasion when she's been back for different programs.
I haven't seen them for,
Me either. I wouldn't, they could probably knock me down on the
I
street.
seen Grant back in 78.
Does he look like his dad?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I probably know him then.
Yeah, they live in Littleton now.
Yeah. Marvin, he used to come up the steps to the house after a long day, and it would be fall. And my mom would stick her head out, because she had Grant, she was taking care of Grant. And he'd go, "Kimmy, the frost is on the pumpkins."
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
So,
Yeah.
help me understand this. I've heard different terms of the different pastures or areas of the ranch when Phipps owned it. I've heard of Cheese Ranch. I've heard of the South Ranch. I've heard of the East Ranch.
Yes.
I've heard of the Douglas investment property. And at least prior to 65, I understood there was some stuff down, by the Plum Creek. Let's start with the East Ranch. What was the East
Yeah.
Ranch?
It was probably over near the Cheese Ranch, but south 3 or 4 miles.
It was Daniels Park Road, they were both on the
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And that part of the land bordered Daniels Park.
Are you familiar with the Griggs Ranch?
The
Or
who?
Griggs Ranch, or what was called the Pine Tree Ranch?
No, I don't know the name.
It sounds like the same area you're talking about.
Yeah.
There was
And
an
there
old-
was another ranch kind of in between them. But to the east farther was
it was MacArthur Ranch,
MacArthur.
further to the east. In
Yeah.
fact, they have a road there now
Right.
called MacArthur Ranch Road.
Yeah.
Now the East Ranch, what I heard was on it was on that Smoky Hill Trail. It had been a stage stop at one time.
Yeah, that's the one that Mr.
Okay,
Phipps.
so,
And there were corrals there, so during branding season, that was usually like the first place they
Yeah.
started was the East Ranch. They would go, and all the cowboys would go out. Mr. Phipps would take his station wagon with his wash tubs of beer and pop in the back, and they would brand there, and then they would go to the main ranch, wouldn't they?
They go to the Cheese Ranch.
Oh, the cheese hens.
They
that's
had
right.
corrals. They built them.
Yeah.
The ones at the East Ranch, I think they just enlarged
From the old house.
from the old house.
Yeah.
And then they would come to the headquarters, to the main place.
would they be driving cattle here?
Yeah, they would gather
Calves?
in, because early in the spring, they had, during the winter, they had all the cattle out in the front here, where all
Right.
these houses are.
Right.
And as soon as they calved out and they got them dehorned and so many head and they got enough, then they drive them over to that
Driving
place,
over here.
to the East
Where the
Ranch.
corrals are?
And some over the Cheese Ranch.
It was exciting roundup. It
And the
was.
front pasture was, they never pastured that during the summer.
Yeah.
Maybe a few old, sometimes there would be a few head that they wanted to keep. And they always, there was some summers, there was this old bull, towards the end of the summer, he would get on the prod and come in, because there was no gates between the coming in that lane. And there was a little lilac bush there. It never did have a fair chance, because he would just wreak havoc with it. He'd beller and go on and he'd take off.
I used to make our mom so mad because she tried to make that bush grow.
Yep.
And then they pastured a lot of them over on the south, up on where the windmill and over to,
Yeah.
because there was several acres over there, and then the hunt club had a few. There was a fence that didn't go past.
But then there was
They had for their
the
horses.
West Road. Now, what was that called? Down there, down west of where we're at now, remember? You went down the West Road towards Santa Fe, and there were corrals and stuff. I can't remember what that area section was called,
Oh, there was, all it was down, I can remember.
but I remember there were cattle down in there, because...
Well, there was a windmill down there,
Down there.
and they would drive them all up to here.
Yeah,
I don't remember what they called that.
I don't either.
I forgot.
And then there was the North Ranch that was over there off of
Yeah, there
County
was-
Line and University.
There was a section, or I don't remember how many acres, but it was across County Line Road. It was like on the west of where University would have been, if it had come through. There was a right-of-way there, and it went over to the next road, and I don't know what road. They didn't have names on them days, but that was all farm ground.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And at the time, when they acquired the Quarter Circle Bell out by Elizabeth, Phipps traded some kind of a deal with Aurora, and there's a big water reservoir underneath the ground out there someplace.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
no, I
is.
pass it all the time when I...
But he traded that land for the Quarter Circle Bell, which there was 17.
Is that where you lived? Quarter Circle Bell? Yeah.
You lived there too?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where Lawrence III lived, and where Marie still lives.
Because I worked, after I got out of high school, I worked here a year or so. And then thought I could, change. I went to the mountains and worked
Yeah.
for a guy up there for the summer for 6 months. Well, he didn't need any help up near Basalt. And then I come back. That would have been the late 60s, and I worked for the hunt club. Filled in because one guy, Kay Morgan, which is Bud's son, worked over there. He was married to
Bunny.
Bunny, George Beeman's daughter. She was sick, and I filled in on 3 or 4 days a week, cleaning stalls.
And this is down just on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of Rocky Top, right?
And then I might have worked for the vet again, and I worked for the Cherokee Ranch, and then I went to work for Uncle Sam. I got drafted in 1965.
I hear you. Were you going to Vietnam at that point?
Yeah, I spent a year there. I was
Yeah.
there from 66 to 67.
Did you watch the start of the Ken Burns documentary on Vietnam last night on PBS?
No.
No, I forgot it was on.
Well, there'll be other showings, but this is the first hour and a half of
A friend of mine
it's a 10-part, 18-hour thing.
Really?
Yeah, we watched it last night because we're of that vintage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so many, I
And
mean,
found the background information very interesting.
yeah.
And then
Yeah, we
There'll be other showings this week. If you have a chance to catch that.
catch that. And then I worked here and there, and then I got married. I was working for the vets when I got married the first time.
No, you just gotten out of the service when you met.
Yeah, about a year,
Yeah, you hadn't
year
been,
and a half.
you hadn't been home long. I was 16 and you were letting me drive your car.
And we lived in town for a while. And then there was a little house down on the county line, and it's not there anymore. It's right across from that reservoir they built.
McClellan? Yeah.
There was a little gray house that belonged to Phipps there. His property went down there. We was renting that, and then, I don't know, sometime later, Bud Morgan asked me if I wanted to go to work move out to Elizabeth. And we thought it over, and
You and the cat and Chris went to Elizabeth.
we kind of made some of them mad because they had a little shack out there at Elizabeth that the other hired man lived in. It was a trailer house with an addition. Being we talked to Mr. Phipps and we did this and that, he put a double wide out there, and then we moved into that.
A brand new one.
Yeah.
I worked there for
Quite a
4 years or so.
while.
Getting back to the different pastures, what's your memory of what was down at Douglas Investment property?
Dirt biking? Oh,
Was it?
well, at one point, yeah, my friends and I, we got permission to go back up in there.
Yeah.
And we took our dirt bikes up in there and we had so much fun. But also, Pearl Blood, you know
Yeah.
Pearl? And Willie and me and Brian and one of Pearl's brothers, we packed a lunch from here at the main ranch and we rode across country to Douglas and had lunch.
It's a pretty good hike.
Yes, it was. But, you know, you're all with friends and you're having laugh and it was great. It was fun. But yeah.
Things I remember about Douglas, it was a hard pasture to gather cattle in.
Oh. It was like mountains.
Because it was
Kind of
long, rocky
mountainous.
and hilly.
It's hilly.
Yeah.
And we'd go down there in the fall together, or in the summer, we went down there, when they branded and did things, they always sprayed the cattle. They had a machine that was on like a size of a 1-horse trailer. The cow would walk in, they had chutes made, you back that up to it, and it was all self-contained. You had a pump on it and it sprayed in several
So they
directions.
spray them there and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sprayed them.
Yeah. And it stunk to high heaven.
Yeah, that was,
It was
I
nasty.
got stuck doing that several times in my,
And that wasn't as fun as the grain trucks. The grain trucks were always fun in harvest. When they had the wheat and the barley and stuff. Oats weren't much fun, but the wheat, you get in the back of those wheat trucks and eat wheat as much as you can eat till you're fresh wheat out of the fields. Oh, God.
yeah, most of the weekday. And there was one other house it was way down west, and then you come about a mile off of Santa Fe, 85.
Mhm.
And there was a lane come across into the ranch, there was a cut across. On the same road, I don't know what it's called, Town Center now? Is that the one where the old Plum Creek School is on? It's a special ed school now, I guess.
Well, where the Plum Creek School used to be, I understand is used by the district for the bus coordination.
Was it? A few years ago, it was a special ed.
Could have been,
Yeah.
yeah, it could have
But
been.
if you went straight in and then went probably, might have been a mile back down
I
there.
know where you're talking.
There's an old house, and we used to always call it the pigeon house when I
Uh-huh.
was real little. My dad and Dan and they'd board up the windows and then they'd go down there. Bob Swafford was the foreman then, and he liked pigeon shooting. They'd catch them and turn out the windows. But years later, was it Devlin? There was they bought the thing from Phipps, and there was some business connection or old friends or something, but they remodeled the house and lived there for several years.
When that was Sleepy Hollow part of the ranch down there in the, almost to Blakeland?
That might have been, yeah, that might have been part of that, because if you went past that, there was a windmill down there,
Yeah.
and then you could go around underneath the bridge overpass, railroad overpass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
Sleepy Hollow. I don't think there was any cows or anything, was there?
Well,
It was
they
just
had
a piece
cows
of
down
land,
there.
I remember that.
We brought cows from the Plum Creek Ranch
Up,
up one time.
yeah.
We talk about roundups to some degree. Were roundups kind of an all hands thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody had a part of
and they
something.
would,
What was your role? And Debbie?
When I was young, really young, I didn't get to go out on horseback. But I had to help my mom at the bone caps. And I had to help serve, get the table set,
Mhm.
and then serve tea, milk, water, coffee to the hands that were.
Yeah.
And then when I got older and I had my own horse, then I was allowed to go on the roundup, the close-in roundups.
What would you do?
Go out and find cows and bring them in.
Just bring them in, just herd them in. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was you find a cow and get it to the corral with the rest of them and hope that.
Susanna Ray talked about her role in Roundup here at HQ was that they had chutes, and at the bottom of the chute was this vat full of the chemical stuff. And
The
she
sprayer.
was the one with the cattle prod that got to encourage them to jump into
Yeah.
the vat so that they would, you know,
Yeah. And
Yeah,
when we
they
were
weren't
young,
using sprayers there, but it was kind of a full body immersion thing.
Yeah, and when
Coat
we
their
were
skin.
young, we pushed the calves
Yeah.
into the branding chute.
Right.
yeah, and some of what there might have been, because there was remnants of it where they had a long trough and a vat and they jump them off in there. And I don't know, remember when they built all them things, but they built them other chutes, and the county owned that spray machine.
Mhm.
And he had a guy bring it around, and probably wasn't up into the 60s. The county quit doing it, and Phipps bought that machine, and we just used it, you know. But when they Roundup, they would have anybody that could ride here, and then there was always 3 or 4 other guys. There was a couple from Dan McLean. He'd worked here one time, but he was working down for a place south of Sedalia. And the boss there, they'd come up and they would help in the roundup and whatever needed to be done, you know.
There would be a lot of people.
And there was
A
always,
lot. It was exciting.
and then at one time there was The other daughter of Phipps, I don't remember what her name was, but her husband was Clay King, I think.
Was that Richmond?
No, it was one of the older.
Joan's one of the, well, married Chapman, and by a different wife.
There was another woman, and I don't remember.
There was Joan. But
I don't think I ever
she-
met her, but I remember seeing her husband and a couple of their kids. Because he had kids and she had kids. They lived down by Sedalia someplace. Down that direction anyway, I'm not sure where.
Was that Diana? I think she lived down south.
I don't know.
But I know several years, Clay
People really old.
King, I think that was his name.
Yeah.
He come down with cancer and that was years ago, he committed suicide.
Not good.
Yeah. Roundup was exciting though, when those
But it was fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
You kind of
Cattle, when you'd see those hundreds of cattle, huh, Rodney? Those big, white-faced, red animals just coming in, cowboys pushing, and the sound, our house was so close to the corrals, because after they would brand and spray, now this was May when they were doing it,
Right.
and the windows were open in the house at night, and all night long, that night after they brand and sprayed, the mama cows were looking for their babies all night. It was this long,
But it was
cows crying, "Where's my baby?" It was,
because they sprayed just once a year.
yeah.
But in the fall too, they brought a lot of them all in when they weaned, and they tendency when they brought them all in, they brought them in from everywhere, and had them pins down there, and they were all balling.
And then in the spring, when the calving started and the heifers had a hard time, they would take them to what they called the bull barn. And that was where usually the vets were called out to help. And I just remember Willie and I were sitting on the sidelines waiting with gunny sacks. So when they got the calf out, a C-section basically, we would clean the baby up, so by that, that he was cleaned up and make sure it was a pretty good life. Huh,
Do you recall Marvin working here at the ranch much?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Marvin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding is that his clinic is large animals,
Yeah.
cows
Yeah.
and horses
At
both.
the time, there was 3 vets there,
Yeah.
and he come out and did most of that. Anything out here, cesareans and
Yeah. And they took, like, that old chickadee horse that I had, and he ran a piece of something in his eye, and the large animal came out, and we patched his eye and put him in a stall.
because they lived in that house for several
Oh,
years.
long time. Long time. I don't know how many years, but a
Which
long
one,
time.
the one over here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they did.
because they never had any hired people living in that house.
No. Because when Bob Swafford retired and went to Littleton to live, that's when our family moved to that house.
I see.
We thought we were uptown, huh, Rod?
And originally, for years, 2 nurses lived in that house.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Somebody, I don't remember who was it, but they were, in case, I don't remember if it was Mr. Phipps or Mrs. Phipps,
I don't know.
but they lived in that house for a long time.
And Lanny, she always was so good to us kids, us ranch kids. When they stopped the Christmas parties at the bunkhouse, she would invite Brian and I, you were somewhere grown up, and me and Willie up to the main living room in this house where she had a beautiful tree set up. And then we'd go in the kitchen and Fannie Mae would serve us treats. That was,
Oh, good.
yeah, all good memories, all good memories.
Well, speaking of memories, let's talk about one from 1978. The ranch was just sold. Phipps Jr. had been dead a couple of years, and Marvin Davis had sold the ranch to Mission Viejo from California to develop the Phipps Ranch into a community. They'd just gotten the property at this point, and the location scouts had determined that the shooting of the miniseries Centennial, many of the scenes could be shot here on basically an empty building, which was a good stand-in for the Veniford Ranch headquarters in James Michener's book. So they brought all the trucks out and the whole thing too. Do you have any peripheral memories of that time when Centennial was filmed? I understand it was in the fall.
No, I don't, because I didn't come back. That was your sister's
Ronnie,
birthday.
do you have any memories of that?
The only I had, because I was working for Ralph Yockey at the time, hauling cattle, and we come out, and I presume that the filming was all done, and Yockey had 5 trucks. I don't remember if any more was out here now, but we loaded them up, the cattle that was left, and what they'd used in a movie, I suppose. We hauled them off up to Bridgeville, Colorado.
Yeah, they had some filming scenes here, which were purportedly a feedlot.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just east of here, and in many cases, in the filming that was here, it was longhorns,
Mm-hmm.
which they normally didn't have here on the ranch
No.
at this point. What breeds do you remember here for the most part? Were these,
The what, I'm sorry?
what breeds of cattle? Were these Herefords or
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all Herefords, and
White-faced
the
Herefords.
ones we hauled out were Herefords.
Herefords?
Yeah, that's all I ever knew.
Because in a few of the episodes, it does show some Hereford cattle. And they show a lot of the, because I just watched one of these again on TV the other night, part of it. They showed the bull, what we call the bull barn.
Yeah.
It's the
The big barn, the milk barn, the big horse barn, the bull barn.
and then there's another little barn that was,
There's a maintenance shed out there too.
Well, that's on this
There's a
side.
it's on this side.
Okay. Yeah.
And they showed pictures of the corrals down there and a couple of different things.
Yeah, the last Centennial episode that I saw, I think they were into the Dust Bowl days.
Yeah.
And this was prior to the one that was like the 10th or the 11th. I
Right, it was toward
seen
the
part
end.
of it
It was toward the end. It was after.
when one guy died.
Which guy?
Well, he was married to the woman.
Oh, Levi's in.
No, later. What was his name? The woman that inherited the ranch,
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
The guy that married her, he'd worked.
Oliver Seacombe shot himself out back here.
Oh, that was another. That was her first husband.
The second husband is Jim Lloyd,
Yeah, Jim Lloyd.
who'd been the cowboy.
That guy,
who
he
came up
died
here,
in the barn over there.
who came here at 15 and a half from,
Yeah,
from
from
one
Texas.
of the first Texas cattle drives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't remember that episode very much.
I just happened to, I was scrolling through my TV and I seen it on. I'll watch part of that, see what's.
Yeah, I've been doing that too this week. If it just happened to be on, and I saw that it was on.
Channel
For this
surfing.
for the last 3 or 4 weeks now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Understand.
But I have the whole series, is
That's good.
Centennial,
Okay.
and on video. I haven't watched them in years because they keep showing on TV.
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't seen it in years either. I just remember when it came out, it was exciting. 'Cause it
Very,
was,
very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was something, I mean, I was like, I was watching it with friends going,
I mean, it was our state. It was our state. You know?
yeah, Highlands Ranch, look.
Yeah,
Right here.
I think that's what's so funny when I'll say to people that I grew up on Highlands Ranch, and they go, "Oh," I said, "No, you don't understand. It was when it was horses, cows, and cowboys.
Right.
That's where I lived."
There weren't very many of you that did.
No, there wasn't. No,
Yeah.
there wasn't. That's why I had to pester my two older brothers.
That's right.
Who was I going to play with?
I heard that from Susanna Ray also,
Yeah,
of being the only female around,
yeah,
because she had brothers.
yeah,
And there's no other
yeah. I lived in the
families
barn.
with girls around here.
Yeah, there was never any other kids here for one period when I was in like 8th grade.
Yeah,
Something. Helfries lived down there.
right.
And then,
When did Bill and Della come?
and they come, I was in high school.
When they came? Yeah, because you were playing football when Eugene was killed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they come,
yeah. Because I asked him earlier where he was the day that that horse drugged Eugene Reed up that hill. It was a horrible day. Horrible.
Did you go to Douglas County
yeah.
High School as well?
Both of us. We're graduates of Douglas
good.
County,
Yeah.
our alma mater.
Yeah,
But that was how many kids was in a class back then?
Marvin
150?
Beeman was too.
Yeah.
He went to Douglas County.
There was a lot less in your class, wasn't there? Because you
there
were.
was 63 in my class.
Yeah,
Right?
I had a big class. I had 150. Yeah. Rode a bus every day. Because Morgan, the bus was parked right outside the house where we lived. And I'd walk down, I had to get on the bus and go, and she would drive us down to Blakeland, and we would catch a senior high and junior high bus that took us on to Castle Rock.
I understood she drove the bus for 25 years.
Forever.
Yeah,
She was the nicest lady.
long time.
Yeah, she was such a nice lady. And Bud was a nice man.
Yeah,
He was a nice man. They were nice people, good people. Good people. And their kids were great. Debbie, that's their
granddaughter.
right? That's Bunny's daughter.
Yeah,
Now, she's close to my age, I think. Bunny.
kind of, yeah.
Debbie is.
Yeah.
Because it was always the thing, it was Debbie thing going on with us.
Yeah, was she?
Yeah.
She's still living around there?
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, women change their names, so nobody knows what
Oh,
happens.
yeah.
So, you know, one of the granddaughters came in here last year sometime,
Mhm.
Well, and her brother was,
maybe 2 years ago. And they had a landscape architect out here with Metro District who was at that time planning Marion's garden. So he was out here measuring things, but
Yeah,
they moved some dirt around but hadn't planted anything. That would be the next spring
yeah.
at this point. And I'm friendly with him. I'd go out every time he's there. I go out and talk to him. What are you doing today? Kind of routine. And I'm here doing my docent thing. Imagine some young thing comes in, a little upset, emotionally, tears in her eyes, the whole thing. And it's pretty quickly she mentions she's the granddaughter,
Of Mary.
Marion's granddaughter, and she sees they're doing the work out here. And so I went out and got him and said, Marion's granddaughter's in here, you might want to come talk to her. Well, it turned out that they did, and they wanted to tour the first cottage there. They couldn't arrange it that day, but they were able to arrange it the next day,
Right.
whatever, to do that, which was meaningful. But this was her first time back here, evidently in a long time, and obviously
Yeah.
doing
And
a
it's
memorial garden
important to be able to do
her
that.
grandmother was meaningful.
Yeah, but she was just the last time I saw her, I mean, I don't even know how old she was at that point. And, you know, I walked up, knocked on the door, and she just welcomed me with a hug, and how are you, and how are your brothers? And it was just, she was just that kind of lady. She just was. She used to sing driving the bus in the mornings, when it was just her and I.
Right.
What is the song she sang?
My understanding, she certainly wasn't alive in 2009 when they were starting to plan the remodel of this. Because we've seen pictures with Jeff Case and Jim Teffer and her right out in front of the carved door in the front. Do you know how long she lived here before she moved away?
Marion?
Marion, you know when she moved away?
No, she stayed in that house as far as I know until she died. I don't know beyond that. I don't know if ill health sent her to a care facility.
I thought she might have gone to a care facility of some type.
Yeah.
It seemed like I heard she went and lived with Rhonda.
Oh, did she? Yeah.
That's her daughter.
Who's Rhonda's her daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did live up near Laramie.
Yeah. Well, I understood that she died in 2013, somewhere around there.
And she had her birthday here in this house.
I can't remember how I heard
Yeah, I remember somebody telling me that she had her birthday party in the mansion.
Yeah.
Because I, in contact with some of the people I graduated with, and it seemed like they had mentioned something like that.
One final question would be, when I asked you off camera or whatever, what did your dad do here, whatever, maybe both of you could explain to me all the things or some of the major things your dad was responsible for here at the Phipps Ranch.
Farming.
He did a lot of the farming.
Worked on equipment.
Because they at one time there was don't quote me, but it's like there was 600-700 acres of wheat and barley and stuff. They plowed that in, and he did all they summer fall with it, and during the summer. And then when he wasn't doing that, most of the time he was out building them dams and the ponds, or refixing some that had washed out.
Did he work on the windmills too?
Some.
He kind of did a lot.
He did everything, because I remember when I worked here after I got out of high school, man, him and somebody else, we pulled a windmill. And then one summer was when I was in high school, they had 2 combines. I drove one, and Roger Morgan drove the other, which was the son of
Bud's son.
Bud. We run the combines. My dad was there to fix anything and hustle the truck back and forth, because we had them little green trucks. Yeah. And we cut all the wheat and barley.
And our mom would take hot food, to the fields.
Really?
Where they were at working when because it was always like, the typical Mad Hatter's rush. Got to get the grain out of the fields
long
before it rains or goes bad.
We worked
long
from
days. Yeah.
7 o'clock, at least sometimes it was a little later, but we'd leave, be like at 7. We worked till 7 at night, depending on if it got too damp, the wheat got tough to cut. Yeah. And I remember those pictures, he always did the farming. That was his main job and he helped in branding. Yeah. He run the sprayer later on, but that was one of them things that irritated his health. Yeah. And the vibration.
Always there to fix it if it broke down.
And then there was some years I run the sprayer and he was there because he knew all about
the fix-it part.
Important skills.
Well, our dad was one of those men that if the car needed brakes, he'd put it up on whatever and fixed it.
And after they had that one Caterpillar, and any major things, he went down there and spent, I don't know, weeks, I don't know how long it was, but they took it down to Denver, or Commerce City, and he fixed it with their help. Did any major repairs. He learned all about he could tear it apart, put it back together again.
Yep. Okay, we're approaching the end of our time here, but I'll give you both the opportunity to tell any other things you'd like to tell us about your experience.
It was just a good life. I wished I could give my own grandchildren that acreage, the place to run and climb fences and ride the steers in the corral when you weren't supposed to, and climb in the hay where you weren't supposed to, and all of that good stuff that kids, our mom never worried about us, did she?
No,
We'd go out the back door and she was glad, go. But we never wanted to stay in that, at least I didn't. I didn't want to stay in the house. There was too much to explore, too much to do. It was a good life. Our
Rodney,
parents-
final statement or
yeah, it was
comment
a
from you?
good life. We explored all the barns and we could go anywhere we wanted as long as we didn't tear nothing up.
That's right.
And we played on all the barns, and there were certain areas you kind of was off limits because, you know, this and that, but it wasn't that much, and we never got in trouble. Nobody complained, but it was a great life.
It was.
Good. Okay.
We learned a lot.
I want to thank you on behalf of the Highlands Ranch Historical Society for sharing your memories.
You're very
Because
welcome.
we all find them valuable. So thanks again.
Thank you.